this song is in 7/4, which means 7 quarter note beats per bar. So it's a slightly odd time signature. The other thing to watch out for is that the eighth notes are swung, okay? So there's a slightly different feel with that. Now, I think that the original's played with a pick, but I'll just start off by playing with my fingers. So starting off at the 2nd fret of the A string. Now watch out for that B there. That is quite a short sounding note, and the length of the notes in any bass line you play is really, really crucial. And I think that comes down to your technique, really, being able to control the strings and shorten the notes by dampening with your left hand or your right hand. So here, I'm just literally just releasing pressure after I've played that B. Let's try it with a plectrum now. You get that slightly kind of rockier, more attacking sound with that. So it's always worth really listening out to whatever bass line you're playing, what kind of gear is being used, how are they playing it, and try to sort of replicate that if you can. The other thing about this is that anytime you see a 0 in the tab, I very often will play that on the 5th fret of the E string if it's an A, or the A string if it's a D, but I just find there's a bit more control. So that A there on the 5th fret, D on the 5th fret of the A string. You can do a little bend as well on that. Now, at the beginning, that's much more difficult because that's a big stretch there. But when you kind of get used to that, you can control notes and shorten open string notes much easier if you do that. So do try to use the 5th frets instead of the open strings. Just notice those swing quavers. So instead of, which sounds completely wrong, so make sure you're swinging those quavers. Now the bass line for Smoke on the Water is not this at all, but the riff is so famous that it's, why not learn it? You can actually learn whatever you like on the bass. You hear a theme tune that you like, try and work that out. You hear, something that's played in a guitar, it's all good. You're going to learn something from everything. So just have that attitude of not just learning bass lines, just learn all kinds of things. Like if you're into jazz, learning horn lines, saxophone lines is a great way to learn to solo. So the bass doesn't actually do this at the beginning, but it's all good. So we'll start off at the 3rd fret of the E string. Fairly standard. I'm just using my little finger for that D flat on the 4th fret of the A string there. Billie Jean is another absolute classic bass line, and actually this isn't played on a bass guitar, it's played on a synth bass. But again, fine, we can play this. This is played in bands a lot, so the thing here is just to keep it as consistent as you can and keep the 8th notes as in time as you can. I mean, that's the job as a bass player. So everything is kind of taking place around the 4th and the 2nd frets, and in that portion of the bass, the frets are quite wide here. So even though we've got a 3 fret span here from fret 2 to 4, I won't use my 1st finger for the 2nd fret and my 3rd finger for the 4th fret, as you would if you do 1 finger per fret, which is what we talk about a lot. But I think it's just a bit easier to use your little finger. Now again, if you're just starting out, the little finger is the one that's ignored a lot, really. But when you're playing really, really fast passages, or you're playing at this part of the neck, I think to be able to use your little finger is a real kind of good thing to be able to do. So try and use that. The stretch is less there, so in the long run, it's kind of a little bit easier on your hands. So just going very slowly. It's actually a really good workout for both hands, that one. So most of the riffs in this video are using a kind of minor key, so minor pentatonic or a natural minor scale. Now, lots of rock and pop tends to do that, and that is another kind of thing to look out for, or start to look and listen out for when you're learning bass lines. So you're kind of analysing the sounds and the players and the history of the music and kind of learning a lot from that side of things. You're learning a great bass line just for the sake of learning a great bass line. But if you really want to get into that kind of thing, after a while you get the connection that nearly everything you're playing is just the same scale, okay? And once you do that, that really helps your improvising, and it helps if you want to jam or even to write music yourself. You can kind of decode what's going on with that. So with this one, the chain, we're using a natural minor scale, so A natural minor. And if I just play, you can see it's the first three notes. And then it's just the notes going down the scale. It always absolutely fascinates me how many amazingly cool riffs and tunes and songs that you can get from one scale, one sound. I think when I realised that, a huge light bulb went off, and it really helped my playing, and it helps writing music and improvising as well. So that's what I'd like you to kind of have a go at doing, is just to, everything you play, just see if you can just work out if there's something kind of going on there that you can understand. And then from that point, I think you just improve musically leaps and bounds. Here's another one in a minor key. This one's in D minor. So we'll learn the riff, and I'll just show you something cool you can do if you know what key you're in. So this one starts at the 3rd fret of the A string on the C. Now again, that one's a good one for kind of working on your length of notes. So you have an open string D here, which needs to be stopped. So the first two notes are C and a D. So that D, I'm just very lightly touching the strings kind of with 2 or even 3 fingers, quite straight fingers, not anything too strong, just very light touch to stop the note. It takes a while to get used to that, actually, just being really free with damping notes when you don't want them, lifting up fingers when you want notes to stop. That's a real big thing. But going back to the key, so we're in, if I just play the riff. Those are the notes of the scale. Now, that I wouldn't play something like that, but if you know that you're in D minor, and you know some of your pentatonic shapes, for example, so for example this one, you can kind of go. You can kind of start to fill and add kind of things around it. Now you don't want to overplay, you certainly don't want to do that, and most of the time just playing the bass line is what you want to do, but kind of gets your ear tuned in and connected to a bass line, from a bass line to a scale, which I think is quite a useful thing to be able to do. So this one needs a bit of alternate plucking with your right hand fingers because you've got 16th notes, which are quite quick. Now as you can see here, I've put the tab as 0 on the A string to the G. But do try fret 5 of the E string to 3 of the E string. It's all on one string, and it's a little easier to play that quick little line there. So if you're playing it from the A to the G, you're skipping across 2 strings on your right hand here. So don't always, everything you see on tab, take it with a pinch of salt really, because there's always so many different ways of playing something on the bass. I think if you really learn by ear, then you have to work it out yourself, and I think that's what I would recommend with this. I know I'm giving you the tab and the music here, but just for future things, just anything you want to learn, try your best to learn by ear, and it will take a bit of time and you may get a bit lost at the beginning, but so many bass lines. Look at all this. This is all coming from minor pentatonic or natural minor scales. That's just one scale you would have to learn, really. And not all music uses just that, but it's a great kind of scale, I think, to get your ear kind of tuned into at first. And then when you're learning anything by ear, it just becomes a little easier the more that you do it. And then I think when you get to the bass, you have to work out what the best way is of doing something yourself, and you ultimately gain a bit more freedom from doing that. So the whole thing is... John Deacon actually wrote this song, and he was very influenced by Bernard Edwards' line on Good Times by Chic. So that goes... You can see the kind of similarities in how John Deacon was thinking by listening to other types of music. Here's another John Deacon bass line. And I love this one because it's just so simple. It's two notes just repeated. It's completely unmistakable though, so the lesson here is just simplicity is often the best thing you can do. Now, you can try this one with the pick as well. Just a quick note there, I'm just going down, 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 up for those two 16th notes. So down, 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 up, down, down. Similar to the chain, this bass line uses A natural minor. It goes like this. That's another one where you've got to control the open strings there. So just touching the A string to stop it. You can really see that scale going on there, hear it as well. This isn't actually a bass line at all, it's Jack White's guitar tuned down an octave to sound a bit like a bass, but it's a cool one to play. It starts on the 2nd fret of the D string. Now those notes there are quite short. And the last ones are long. If you only want to play one style of music, then that's absolutely fine, but I do recommend that you learn as many different styles as you can, especially on bass, because let's just say you learn some Latin bass lines, then that really works on your sense of rhythm. If you work on your jazz, then it works on your knowledge of harmony and different scales and modes and things like that. So you may not like jazz, you may not like rock, but I think you can learn so much from the different styles of music. As bass players, we're lucky that our instrument is used across the board in so many different styles. So I always think it's quite exciting to be able to drop into either a big band or a funk band or a rock band or whatever. And the more different styles of music you know, the more equipped you'll be to do things like that.